The Upanishads, one of the ancient scriptures of India, tell us, you are what your deep driving desire is. As your deep driving desire is, so is your will. As your will is, so is your deed. As your deed is, so is your destiny. Just as these tiny seeds are destined to become wildflowers, so our desires are the seeds of their own fulfillment. We just need to prepare the soil and tend the plants faithfully to see them flower. Howard Thurman, in the same talk from which this morning's reading was taken, goes on to offer this encouragement. He says, if the conditions for growth and for development are met, then growth and development flow automatically. This is the kind of responsive, dynamic, living, throbbing universe that honors the mind and the spirit, that together can say one thing and be that. What is it that you want, really? If this can be clear to you, then all of the resources of life honor that which is for you worthy of your deep desire. It might be a little surprising to hear such a positive, practical take on the subject of how to get what you want. In a religious context, desire has often been suspect. Since Augustine, a 4th century theologian considered one of the church fathers, there have been Christians who see human beings as driven by sin and believe that only the desire for God or for service is legitimate. 2 of Christianity's 7 deadly sins, lust and greed, are about excessive or misdirected desire. From another part of the globe, Buddhism gives us the concept of attachment. It cautions against becoming attached to anything we want in this world of impermanence, for we are sure to be thwarted in our desires sooner or later. If we don't want anything, we can't be disappointed. So the lofty goal of nirvana is the blowing out of all ego and desire, the sources of suffering. What might sound even more radical to our ears is that in this great swirling universe, we emissaries of embodied consciousness are God's very way of experiencing this physical reality. We are ourselves instruments or manifestations of spirit. In this way of thinking, God's own yearnings for a variety of experiences and fulfillment happens, at least in part, through us. In that sense, our desires to experience this life are holy desires. I find something of value in each of these very different ways of understanding desire. So let me suggest for the moment that we look upon desire in a very basic way, as the evolutionary energy that pushes life forward. Desire is power. Without our wanting, nothing would ever happen. We would have no experiences. We would not be living. We humans experience a great variety of desires, some of them very basic. One evening, after I had put my then 4-year-old child to bed, I heard her calling me through the bedroom door. I reminded her it's time to sleep, not time to play. But Mommy, I want you, she said. I could hear the need in her voice. A few minutes in the rocker satisfied her deep desire for mother's love and closeness. Not all of our desires are as deep and wholesome as a child's need for love. You and I have the challenge of living in a time and place when we are bombarded with all sorts of appeals to our lesser desires. Heck, with a little help from Madison Avenue, Homo sapiens is easily shaped into Homo desidero, creature driven not by wisdom, but by wanting. Through a barrage of advertising, 3,000 plus commercial messages per day, we have become an animal instinctive for the great variety and insatiability of its desires. Popular consumer culture is not the only force filtering and shaping our desires. We may also be influenced by our parents, our friends, mentors. It can be hard to distinguish between what they want for us or what they think we should want for ourselves and what we ourselves actually want. As Howard Thurman posed the question, what do I want, really? For the end of my studies at a liberal arts college, I decided I would pursue graduate school. I loved sociology and I wanted to go further with it. My academic advisor steered me toward the most prestigious graduate programs, assuring me that this would give me the best opportunities. This is how I came to be in Indiana, moving to Bloomington to attend a highly ranked sociology program that was known for the great research that its professors and its PhD students turned out. Alas, I concluded too late about halfway into the program that this was not really preparing me to answer the call of my heart. I loved sociology because it helped me understand social issues like persistent poverty and the limitations of our gender socialization and the structural racism embedded in this country. I wanted to help solve such problems. That was my deep, thriving desire. I didn't want to spend decades furthering a narrow research agenda, important as that kind of work is. I wanted to use sociology to change the world. I belonged in an applied setting, not a wholly theoretical one. I had listened too quickly to my mentor's advice without sorting out for myself first whether it was really true for me. So I ended up leaving that doctoral program with a master's degree and going into the nonprofit sector, and I vowed that the next time I needed to make a major life decision, I would get clear on what was really driving me before I took a leap to fulfill that desire. Our understanding of our own deepest desires gets filtered not only through the well-intentioned ideas of those we love and respect, but also through the meta-message of commercial culture. The message that fame, fortune, and all sorts of stuff are the key to happiness. One of the hazards of living in an age of such lived-up desire is restlessness. I don't know if many of you have experienced much restlessness, but I have experienced a lot of restlessness in my life. And I come to think of restlessness as desire in search of an object to attach to. You ever found yourself craving something to snack on, but the chips don't satisfy? The apple leaves you wanting more. Even the chocolate disappoints. Nothing really seems to hit the spot. Or perhaps for you it's a craving for some other kind of experience. Travel to exotic lands, adventures on roller coasters and zip lines. 5 years of online dating experience without a single long-term relationship to show for it. The sages would say that our search is misdirected. In modern parlance, we are looking for love in all the wrong places when we look for fulfillment at the surface of life. Not that there is anything inherently wrong with visiting New Zealand or meeting lots of new people, but persistent restlessness, dissatisfaction with life as it is, may actually be a sign that one has deeper desires that have not yet been recognized and cultivated. What is your deep, thriving desire? What do you want, really? Spiritual teachers from many traditions testify from their own experience that the only thing that can ultimately satisfy us is huge, is bigger than we can really wrap our minds around. It's not a thing at all. It is beingness. It is the Tao. It is the Great Mother. It is our true self. In the words of William Law, a Protestant theologian and writer of 18th century England, the soul is so infinite that nothing can ever satisfy it or give it any rest but the infinity of God. Whatever language we use to fulfill that underlying desire to go beyond our little ego selves, the wise ones advise, we must weed out the lesser desires. Similarly, leaders in both business and nonprofit settings are coached during strategic planning to set forth not only their priorities, what they want to achieve, but the things they will stop doing in order to redirect their resources toward their strategic priorities. What are you willing to give up to attain your true desires? The great Sufi poet Jalaluddin Rumi puts it more poetically, writing, 1,000 half-loves must be forsaken to take one whole heart home. Many new parents are familiar with these sacrifices of one love for another. They sometimes find their hobbies disappearing and friendships shifting, at least during the intense early years of baby and toddlerhood. After my daughter was born, I managed to continue working full-time and singing in choirs, which of course I could not have done without a very supportive partner. She even graced the back cover of the Bruce Lullabies album, one of our 2 mascot babies for that music project. But a few years later, when I entered seminary, I discovered that there was no longer room in my life to keep singing in that group. Much as I loved it, it was one of those half-loves that had to be forsaken so that I could answer the calling of my heart. Perhaps you have also at times, given your whole heart to a deep, thriving desire. I suspect many of those here who have carried on a spiritual discipline, from yoga or martial arts to prayer or meditation, have had a taste of this. Such practices over time have a way of clearing away some of the clutter from our lives as it comes into focus what it is that is really important to us. This can be a great relief, because when you're in a state of more unified desires, you're not pulled in a million directions by a bunch of little desires and confused by them. There comes clarity. There comes a falling away of the excess that clutters our consciousness. And when the weeds are cleared away, our wildflowers, the desires that are truest to us, can grow to their full stature. Whatever traditions we draw from, spiritual practices offer us tools for dealing with desire. When we do Tai Chi or walk among the trees or meditate, we're better able to discern what our own deep desires are. As we sink below the usual chatter of our minds, in prayer, for example, we return to the roots of consciousness. This is especially helpful at times when we're not sure what we want, what we desire. At such times, we need to get quiet enough to hear still, small voice within, giving plenty of time and room for this voice to arise. Let us pause briefly and looking at these Texas bluebonnet flowers, aware that they are a native wildflower of this place. And I want to invite you to consider which of your desires is really yours, you might say is native. Which of your desires do you want to cultivate in your life? So from the passing pleasures of the senses, all those things Madison Avenue was getting us worked up about, to the perennial joy of which the great mystics speak, we human beings have a wide range of desires. In between those two extremes, we have desires for rich relationships, for meaningful work, for personal growth. Here also is a category of desires which is important to many Unitarian Universalists. Desires to improve the world, to relieve suffering, whether it is the suffering of our fellow human beings, or whether it is the suffering of other beings whom we are crowding out on this planet. This brings us beyond the level of our individual desires to the level of organizations, like this congregation, and even the level of nations and United Nations. All of these principles about desire, cultivating right desires, discerning true desires, and unifying desires, or at least focusing them a bit more, all apply equally to organized groups of people as to individuals. In 1961, President John F. Kennedy promoted the goal of landing a man on the moon. This was previously the stuff of science fiction, but we aligned our collective will for this goal and focused our resources. And in 1969, Neil Armstrong took one giant leap for mankind onto lunar soil. When we human beings know what we want, we can do pretty amazing things. If we had a strong enough desire as a nation to really make the switch from fossil fuels to renewable energy, how long would that have to take? We put a man on the moon in 8 years. Why are we still trying to ramp up renewable energy 35 years after Carter put the first solar panels on the White House? I believe the more unified we are as people in that desire, perhaps we need to do a little weeding, the faster it will happen. There is great wisdom in the 60s era bumper sticker that tells us to think globally, act locally. For the actions of individuals and local groups shape and make up our collective desires. National actions and outcomes follow from those desires. We help shape what that collective desire is. Let me give you an example of how organizations fit in. As a nature lover and environmentalist, probably like many of you, I was for a long time a member of my local land trust, which in Indiana was the Sycamore Land Trust. I understand around here you have the Texas Land Conservancy that fills a similar role. When I was a staff member at Sycamore Land Trust, I saw up close the strong shared vision that existed all across those involved in the leadership of the organization. This land trust had been picking up steam for a number of years, steadily realizing its mission of preserving the disappearing landscape of that area. The year after I left Sycamore to begin seminary, the land trust protected another 3,000 acres, bringing its total to 8,000 acres. That may not sound like a lot by Texas metrics, but it was almost 40% of the total acreage that that land trust had protected since 1990, added in a single year. And nationwide, the land trust movement, only a few decades old, had helped protect over 47 million acres, more than the entire state of Missouri protected. Sycamore is an important part of that national groundswell, and I hope that the Texas Land Conservancy is too. The organization I'm mentioning is crystal clear about what it wants to do, and so you can see it in the results that they're getting. Organizations whose deep, driving desires revolve around social and environmental concerns can help focus the desires of all the people who participate in them and accomplish big things. But I think religious communities, in a way, play an even more important role. Congregations have been the strongest builders of social networks and mobilizers of volunteers in the history of this country. These are the places where people first learn how to give to things that they believe in. This congregation at Westside has collectively expressed a desire to make a difference, which you can hear in the transcendent values you adopted. The transcendent values of compassion, equality, and justice that express Westside's desires for having an impact in the world. The connections you make and the actions you take, both within and beyond these walls, are inspired in significant measure by the ideals that are nurtured here, the desires that are shaped here. For it is not only in our dojos and coupons, on our meditation cushions or woodsy walks, that we train ourselves for those desires that we most want. But in this sanctuary and in these classrooms, here you tend the desires that you believe are life-giving, planting the small brown seeds of your desires for compassion, equality, and justice, and the dark, damp earth of our lives. Letting your visions become manifest in the community and world in ever-widening circles. Here at Westside, we bring ourselves back again and again to those things that are most important. Our desire that all respect the inherent worth and dignity of every person. Our desire that all live with respect for the interdependent web of life of which we are a part. So when you think of the work that you do here, that this congregation does together, what takes place in this building, in this community like the Samaritan House, or even on the streets, as at yesterday's Tarrant County Pride Parade, one way to think about it is that what we're doing is cultivating our deepest, our highest, our truest desires. Desires that, when lovingly tended, can help keep our planet greener and more peaceful, our human neighbors happier, and our own lives more joyful and rich, and perhaps even simpler. What do you want, really? As an individual, and here at Westside as a community, what is our deep, thriving desire? It is a powerful question, for as your deep, thriving desire is, so is your will. And as your will is, so is your deeds. From those deeds will flow your destiny. May your desires be clear and compelling, that your destiny ultimately be worthy of your life. So may it be. I invite you to stand and bow your spirit for our closing hymn, number 175, which expresses our shared desire for the earth and all its creatures.